hot night in the city, the Gateway Arch, the gateway to the West. And tonight, it's game number 2 between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Matt Carpenter making some new friends, and he's in the lineup tonight. With Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin, and welcome to Cardinals Baseball. Delighted to have you with us. And Rick, a real nice pitching matchup in store for the fans at home this evening.
Yeah, we had a good matchup yesterday, and we had 17 runs, so we'll see what happens tonight. A.J. Burnett came off the disabled list in Pittsburgh and is one of 2 pitchers to shut out the Cardinals this year. Lance Lynn, the only Cardinal starter to go 8 innings, was good against the Pirates, a leadoff home run, but then only 3 more hits the rest of the way.
A couple of sluggers came through last night in the middle of this lineup, David Freese and Matt Holliday. More on those two when we come back on your home of the Cardinals, Fox Sports Midwest. Those two have combined for 11 home runs this year, and they've also teamed up for a very special cause. It's called Homers for Health to benefit Cardinal Glennon Children's Medical Center. And fans can pledge to this. For every Cardinals home run hit, money will go to those children. Already over $2,200 has been raised. They're 709 away from their goal of $3,000. A look at Chris Carpenter is up next.
11 postseason that had never been seen before in baseball. But sometimes a closer look can reveal that history does have a way of repeating itself. Connecting Cardinals from the present to the past, here's Jay Randolph.
Grover Cleveland Alexander was already one of the game's best pitchers when he joined the Cardinals in 1926. He was an old 39 considering his off-the-field lifestyle and well past his prime. But Alexander helped the Cardinals make it to the World Series in 1926 against the vaunted Yankees, featuring Hall of Famers Tony Lazzari, Lou Gehrig, and of course Babe Ruth. Alexander threw complete game wins in Games 2 and Game 6. Only reason the Cardinals made it to Game 7 at all. In Game 7, the Cardinals were ahead by 1 run with 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th. Starter Jess Haynes had just loaded the bases with Lazzari coming up. Player-manager Rogers Hornsby had a tough choice to make, but in the end, he trusted Alexander. The same Alexander who threw a complete game the day before. Alexander struck out Lazzari and then faced the minimum the rest of the way in a stunning upset. Fast forward to 2011. Just like in 1926, the Cardinals were not supposed to win, but they did. And also, just like 1926, they found themselves 1 win away from a title and a decision to make. Ultimately, manager Tony La Russa did what Hornsby had done 85 years prior. Despite the short rest, he went with his ace, his workhorse, his Grover Cleveland Alexander. La Russa went with Christopher John Carpenter. If Alexander doesn't protect that Game 7 lead, Hornsby might have looked foolish. If Carpenter doesn't come through on short rest in Game 7 85 years later, La Russa might have also looked foolish. Hornsby trusted his gut. La Russa did too. Both were right. Lance Berkman said that if the Cardinals didn't win Game 7, the incredible comeback in Game 6 would be nothing more than a nice footnote to the season. But if they won Game 7, it would be the stuff of legends. The stuff of legends became the stuff of champions thanks to one of the most legendary performances in baseball history.
In his season debut last night against the Pirates. Mike Matheny glad to have his bat back in the lineup as St. Louis gears up for Game 2 against the Pirates this evening. Pittsburgh made it interesting in Game 1, but in the end, they fell short. Speaking of short, Cards fans of all ages at the ballpark tonight. We're just minutes away. Pirates and Cardinals next. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. By your Mid-America Chevy dealers, the #1 selling brand in St. Louis. Find us at stlchevy.com. By Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, #1 for quality tires and expert auto service. By Steak and Shake, just no equal. And by O'Charlie's, 2 for $20, 1 appetizer and 2 entrees, just $20 only at O'Charlie's. Beautiful night for baseball, and it's started to get a little hot here in the Midwest. Temperatures around 90 degrees. And along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Jim Hayes is with us, and here's a look at Clint Hurdle's lineup. Alex Presley, Nate McLouth, and Jose Tabata. Then Walker, Alvarez, Jones, Barmes, Barajas, and the pitcher A.J. Burnett. Lance Lynn getting the start for the Redbirds.
It's gotten to the point where we look forward to watching Lance Lynn when it's his turn to pitch. That's how good he's been. He hasn't had a hiccup yet. He went 8 innings against the Cubs, the only Cardinal starter to go that deep into a ball game. He's shown durability. He's shown that he belongs. He's shown a good, strong fastball to go along with that.
The defense is Holiday, Jay, and Beltran in the outfield. Freeze for Kyle on the left side of the infield. Descalso, Carpenter on the right side. Behind the plate, the 4-time Gold Glove winner, Yadier Molina. And Around the Horn is presented by Dobbs. Cardinals lead the Central Division by 3.5 games, a record of 15-8. And those 15 wins, the second most in the National League. First pitch is a strike at the knees to Presley.
Always a school of thought that the standings don't matter until a couple of the months in, but it's I think something people say when they're 5 games out. Cardinals ought to be bragging about the start that they had in April.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. Presley slaps it left side. Freeze is playing in. 1 away. We saw Lance Lynn in that last start grind through not having his best breaking ball, and that was against the Chicago Cubs. And as you mentioned, it is a plus fastball, and he's really relied on that.
And he's also pitched well. I mean, he hasn't just thrown the baseball, he's pitched. He retired the last 11 batters that he faced Dan in that last outing, and that shows me that as he gets deeper into the game, he still has a way of getting people out, even if the fastball's still not at 95 anymore, although he really hasn't had much of a decrease in velocity as the game has worn on. So he appears to be adjusting to being a starting pitcher, which is what he did in the minor leagues pretty easily.
And a 1-0 pitch to Nate McLouth. He's taken for a ball outside. Nate McLouth back in a Pittsburgh uniform after a stint with the Atlanta Braves that did not work out. Traded to Atlanta after he signed a 3-year deal. And he hits it down the left field line. That ball is slicing and foul out of play.
Dan, one of the things we noticed about McLouth in Pittsburgh, and really was getting clearer and clearer, that here's a guy that was so good when he was a Pirate the first time, and it seems to me his swing is so much longer. It's just a long swing, and when you've got a long swing, your timing has to be absolutely perfect. You have to guess right what the pitch is. The short strokes, to me, are the ones that are going to lead to more consistency at the plate.
Yeah, they've talked about the fact, too, that for McLouth trying to come back from some major injuries, that's been a real concern because he only hit .229 while with Atlanta, but he only played in 250 games. He had a concussion, strained oblique, also dealt with a sports hernia. And in doing that, dealing with those ailments, developed some bad habits. Timing was messed up. And that's a low strike. Chevy Fox tracks, and we saw first inning last night. Clint Hurdle upset about the strike zone. In his 10th season as a manager, majority of that time at the major league level with Colorado.
Every time I think of Clint, I think of the bad timing that he had in the mid-'80s. He was a Met in 1985 and 87 when the Cardinals went to the series, and he was a Cardinal in the middle when the Mets went to the World Series.
Popped out
0 for 3.
And Fricalla is asking for it. He's got it. Bad timing.
Bad spin. Wasn't his fault.
I wonder what his words would be to a guy like Bryce Harper, who's so highly touted. And matter of fact, there was comparisons made by, I believe it was Davey Johnson. He said he reminds me of Mickey Mantle and watching him take BP. And you hear those kind of things. And Mike actually said, as you get a look now at Clint Hurdle, but Mike was talking about too, it's too much pressure on this kid. Just let him play baseball. But for Clint Hurdle, he's a guy that dealt with those high expectations too.
Yeah, he was a Sports Illustrated cover boy and was a can't-miss prospect who had so much ability when he was younger, and you know, things sometimes just don't work out, and Clint's been asked that a number of times in his career. It's kind of something he's had to deal with, and sometimes I know Clint well enough to know that sometimes he tires of that question, but he always uses it as an opportunity to say, you know what, I played as well as I could, and I can't really deal with your expectation. I have to deal with my own.
Good start here for Lynn. Cardinals coming up in the home half of the first. Followed by Holiday, 3-hit night last night. Carlos Beltran will bat cleanup. Then David Freese, Yadier Molina. Matt Carpenter, Daniel Descalso, and Lance Lynn. Hard-throwing right-hander, former Marlin and Yankee, Toronto Blue Jay, now with the Pirates, and that's A.J. Burnett.
He was terrific against the Cardinals in Pittsburgh, and really was a late inning change, or a late addition to the roster for the Pirates, and all of a sudden he got to become the starting pitcher on a night that was rainy, nasty, cold in Pittsburgh. But he was terrific. Showed really good control, a nasty curveball, and his season was delayed by bunting a ball that hit the ground and then hit him in the face, and he's really been recovering from that.
Defense behind him, Presley, McLeod, the former Gold Glover, and Tabata and Wright. Alvarez, Barmes, Walker, and Jones along the infield. Behind the plate, Rod Barajas. And that's brought to you by Dobbs. You might remember that C.B. Buckner was hurt last night. He's out this evening with an illness, so we do have 4. We are minus C.B. Buckner. Angel Campos is calling balls and strikes. Dan Isonia at first, Dale Scott at second, and DJ Rayburn is down at third. Here's the 0-1-2 for Cal. Homered last night. First home run of the season for Rafael Furcal. Also had a double. He's 11 for 34 against A.J. Burnett. .324 average. Pitch that was up, and a base hit into right.
Furcal's actually been hitting better from the right side. That's where he hit his home run here yesterday. But .319, a healthy batting average, 9 doubles, puts him right behind the league leader Yadier Molina with 10. And that's what you want your leadoff hitter to do. Get on base, put some pressure on early.
How about John Jay? 9 for 16 in this homestand. 4 RBIs. He has a 10-game hitting streak on the line tonight. 462 during this streak. And in the first inning of game 1 of this series, Mike Matheny elected to bunt with John Jay after Furcal had reached.
They were giving it to him. Why not? Defending him a little differently here, taking the bunt away. And Mike has shown that he's not afraid to use the bunt in a sacrifice form early on to try to manufacture a run.
Redbirds have stolen 20 bases in their first 23 games. Tied for 3rd in the National League. That's a base hit into right for Cal the second. And he'll stop there. The strong arm in right of Tabata. The first 2 have reached for Matt Holliday.
Big hole on the right side. He pitches him inside right on the corner. He gets enough of the head on it to drive it past Jones again. For Paul, respecting the arm of Tabata. That's one of those things that never shows up in a box score anywhere. A lot of right fielders in baseball, you'd be looking at first and third right now for St. Louis. But Tabata has a strong arm. Furcal knows it. Jose Oquendo knows it. Chris Maloney was reminding Furcal of that at first base. It's just something you have to respect.
Holliday, a home run last night. Starting to turn it on a bit. 8 RBIs in his last 8 games in the .323 clip. That home run was number 5 last night for Matt. Holliday, liner, base hit, and here comes Furcal. He will score, and it's 1-0 St. Louis. 3 consecutive singles here in the first inning.
Well, the Cardinals have already tied the number of hits they had against Burnett in 7 innings in his last outing. Furcal gets the jump, scores easily, and Matt Holliday continues his streak. You said, Dan, over 300 his last 8 games. He's also hitting the ball hard, and that may be even more important for Matt Holliday. He's starting to be more comfortable at the plate and driving the baseball. Here's a guy that needs to get on track.
And Carlos Beltran meeting with the media prior to tonight's game and talking about moving in that cleanup spot where he's at this evening. He feels he will be pitched a little bit differently, but he also said it doesn't really matter. Right now, I just don't feel all that comfortable at the plate. Beltran drills one to deep right. Whoa, look at that one go. A 3-run shot. Carlos Beltran.
A.J. Burnett has only thrown 6 pitches in this first inning, and he'd like to have 4 of them back. How about this start?
Now David Freese. David with an opposite field home run last night. He now has 6. Now, Ricky, when you were playing, and we've talked a lot about this with Al, but
well, that last swing right there,
I mean, he came out of his shoes.
Yeah.
There was no fear in that swing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it's just a when I was playing question. I think this should be a fastball inside.
And that was what I was going to lead you to, but pitching inside and not letting these hitters, St. Louis, get comfortable.
Well, talk about comfortable. Beltran hasn't been very comfortable the last week or so, but he has a nice smooth swing. The ball just jumps off his bat.
Pedro Alvarez. Wide throw, safe, off the bag. And here comes Clint Hurdle. And the second time in as many nights, Clint wants to have a word with our first base umpire. The Pirates are out here early with their infielders working on throws to first. In particular, the third baseman, and now Clint Hurdle is upset. Would it surprise you here if he gets thrown out?
No, I think he was mad last night, and I don't think he really get over what happened yesterday. There were a couple of called third strikes he didn't like, but also a play at first base when Jones dropped the ball when he was trying to take the ball out of his glove, and it didn't go the Pirates' way, and Clint was very upset about that. So I think this is a bit of a carryover to last night's game, and I wouldn't be surprised if Clint doesn't argue for a while here. Does he pull his foot off the bag really is not a question. Is does he get it back on? And first base umpire Dan Iasanya is saying that by the time he got the foot back on, and that's a good call. Garrett Jones is saying, I touched the base. Yeah, you did, but so did David Freese, and he did it first.
Replay brought to you by Plaza Tire Service, and a chance for Yadier Molina. The first 5 have reached for the Cardinals in this game.
And we criticize umpires every once in a while, and you know they're going to make mistakes. Players make mistakes, managers make mistakes, but you realize just how often they're right. And as we look at that in slow-mo, and Clint Hurdle has to look at it in fast motion, he also has to go out and defend his player. But to the naked eye, it looked like maybe he was out. But as you get to see it in slow motion, and the umpire doesn't have the benefit of that, he's right.
There's a base hit, right center. Freese will stop at second base. What a start here for the Cardinals. And that's 5 hits. And the first 6 have reached as we get a look at our Toyota keys to the game. And since 2000, by month for A.J. Burnett.
Well, he's always been a good pitcher in April, and I think somebody on the Pirates made the mistake of telling him it's actually May now, because his numbers get worse as the season progresses, up to about over a 6.5 in the month of June, and you just wonder whether teams figure him out or whether he kind of goes through a dead arm period. But clearly not the same guy that we saw in Pittsburgh not that long ago. Ray Sears, the pitching coach, has his eye on his starting pitcher, who's an important part, an important piece of this rotation for the Pirates. And you've got to say, not only is he struggling today, but another Pittsburgh Pirate error, Dan.
Dan Hyatt, our esteemed researcher and stat man many times, that helps us out, and his notes pointed to those errors last night. Everybody in that infield made an error with the exception of Walker at second base, who did make a fine play late in the game. But we were talking about that with Dan before our first pitch tonight. The Pirates defensively really have not got it going. We've talked about their struggles too at the plate, the lack of power, the lack of hitting, but their pitching has been very good. But if you can't defend behind them, that will catch up with you too.
And the defense certainly couldn't have helped on Beltran's blast, but the pitcher's struggling. He needs not only for his team to make the routine plays, but they need to make some great plays behind him, pick him up, get him back on track.
So Matt Carpenter gets the start at first base tonight. Alan Craig, pair of hits in his return to the lineup in game 1. Cardinals were hoping to get Lance Berkman back by this weekend possibly, and we are still waiting on that. Did take batting practice today here at Busch Stadium. One ball and 2 strikes. And that's a strikeout of Carpenter. First out for the Pirates here in the Cardinals half of the first.
Outstanding talent that came up with Florida. Features a outstanding curveball that's really unhittable at times, and Matt Carpenter just got a front row seat for one of those. He can pile up the strikeouts when he's right.
Here's Daniel Descalso. Good cut, fouled it back. Daniel, slow start offensively, and even 200. But so valuable what the Cardinals could do defensively and what they may do late in ball games. Could play all 4 of the infield spots. We saw that in spring training to give Mike Matheny a little cushion to play shortstop. 0-2. Nothing in 2 the count with 2 runners on for Daniel Descalso.
I think it's good for Mike to get him in the lineup, get him a start, maybe let him start a couple of days back to back to get the feel. You know, if you're just pinch hitting, maybe taking one at bat on a double switch late in the game, you know, you tend to get your timing off a bit, and Daniel Descalso needs to play often enough to get that feel of being almost like a pseudo everyday player.
The 1-2. Blew it right by him at 94 miles an hour. So back-to-back strikeouts. And the hitter will be Lance Lynn. Nice round of applause for Lynn, who's trying to go to 5-0.
It's what you hope for every time you are a starting pitcher, is that you get a chance to bat in first inning. Watchful eye of his fellow starters. What a spirited competition they had going today in batting practice. These guys were chirping. I mean, they were, talk about competitive. Forget what they do on the mound. About 5 o'clock today, those guys were all over each other. Garcia was part of that. Kind of funny.
And the 1-0 pitch. Who was the most competitive hitting pitcher that you had the chance to play with?
I would say it was Bob Forsch. Bob Forsch was so good. You'd ask him how many home runs he had in his career, and he'd say, oh, I can't remember. That's a lot of home runs when you can't remember.
Easy play for Barmas. Bob Forsch came up. Remember, initially signed as a infielder, third baseman.
Miss my friend.
I bet we all do here in St. Louis. Big inning for the Cardinals. They put up 4 runs on 5 hits, highlighted by that blast from Beltran. Nights here at Busch Stadium. You'll receive up to 50% off the gate price. Cardinals.com/value for group value nights. Carlos Beltran picks up a 3-run homer. Now with 14 driven in, 6 home runs, and he's among the league leaders in walks this year. So on base percentage, despite the average that is at the start of play tonight at 247, he still, for the most part, has been getting on base.
Yeah, he gets on base. He also strikes out a lot, though, and you wonder whether, if the strikeouts continue, what spot in the order is the best for him. You talked and alluded to earlier, Dan, the pressure of hitting in the 4th spot and maybe the expectations and the way teams are going to pitch you, but the 2nd spot has to be a position where you put the ball in play. The walks certainly do help, but sure is nice to have him in your lineup.
So back to work for Lance Lynn, the first-round selection of the Cardinals back in 2008. What a role that he played in postseason play. And I'm sure there was a time where he may have thought about shutting it down at the end of last year, and the Cardinals were probably thinking the same thing because of the injury that he had. That was an oblique, a side injury, and missed considerable time. But Cardinals advance in postseason play. They pick up time, and he picks up a valuable role.
And we saw how despondent Tony La Russa was when Lance Lynn went down, and he recognized that that could be a huge loss for the club because he was really escalating, really almost game by game, getting better and better and better. And Tony was showing more confidence in him, using him later in games. And I mean, he almost looked like, you know, somebody kicked his dog or something, which of course in Tony's case would be a really bad thing. But
for sure.
But he was so despondent when Lynn went down, and he saw something in him, and obviously Dave Duncan did as well, and the Cardinals have continued to give him opportunities.
Pitched in that famous Game 6. He actually gave up 3 runs before the remarkable comeback. 5 games in postseason play, and he was 2-0 in 11 innings of work. Count runs full on Neil Walker.
So what they teach you from A ball up in the minor leagues, every coach will say it in all of baseball. They'll say nothing, nothing. The score's nothing, nothing. They'll come whisper it in your ear. You have to go out and compete as if every single run matters. If you get complacent at all, you get out of what you do best.
Right down the middle. So Lynn fell behind with 3 balls and a strike, and on a 3-2, here you go, hit it, and Walker just watch it sail right in there for a strike.
A bit lower of an arm angle than I remember from Lance Lynn, too. That last pitch, not exactly sidearm, but a little bit lower angle, and not sure that's on purpose or not.
I think it's not just that last pitch, but I've noticed it more tonight.
Yeah.
There's Pedro Alvarez. He had a long home run here last night. 6 on the season, 12 RBIs. Batting .222. You alluded to this earlier, throwing harder when you're a late innings guy like Lance Lynn was, and you don't have to save anything in the tank, you just let it loose. And I found it interesting in asking Derek Lilliquist about that, and he said in his mind that's a myth. A starter should be able to continue to throw hard innings 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on.
If you're built that way. I mean, I've seen pitchers who just seem to be built for the short haul. Todd Worrell is a pitcher that comes to mind who was just great in the minor leagues the first 3 or 4 innings, and then wasn't the same guy later, and they turned him into a reliever, and he's one of the best in the game.
And Freese had to shift on and try to make that spinning play as he slid. And it's a base hit for Alvarez, the first of the night. One of those do-or-die plays, and if he doesn't cut it off, I'm not sure that Fracao would have been able to get Alvarez, who hits from the left side.
It's interesting all around baseball, Dan. We've seen a lot of it in the Central Division. There's a lot more shifting going on and putting players 3 on one side of the infield. It creates different angles for players. And not to make an excuse for David Freese, but you know, so much about the timing of whether or not you charge the ball, whether you back up on it, whether you get the short hop. we've seen Barmes play balls off to the side. And is that because he's playing such a deep shortstop that he has to do it? So positioning is one thing, but that affects the way a fielder attacks the baseball as well.
Here's Garrett Jones. Rick, you look at this Pirates team with Tabata and Walker, Alvarez, Jones. They've got some guys that you'd like. McCutchen, all-star last year and a terrific talent. And yet, for whatever reason, even with the very good pitching, they just cannot put it all together. And 19 consecutive years of losing, Clint Hurdle's trying to break that image, and every manager before him was trying to do that too.
Clint's the right guy to do it psyche-wise, and you've got a lot of pieces that are good, but you need a few more.
Here's a 2-0 pitch with one down. 2-1. Lance Lynn from Brownsburg, Indiana. Played on the high school team there that made it to 3 consecutive trips to the state championship. Their team won it all in 2005, and Lynn was on the mound that year and was 16-0 his senior year in high school with .71 ERA. In the air, out to left, backing up, Holiday. Warmer weather, the ball seems to be carrying a little bit more here at Busch Stadium. And here is Clint Barmes.
Barmes having one of those Aprils where he just like to do a do-over, start over again at 145, and uncharacteristically making a lot of errors at shortstop. Been a solid big leaguer for a long time. Colorado.
You know, Lance Lynn is yet to allow more than 1 run in a start. He's pitched from behind for only 1 of his 27 innings prior to tonight. So it's allowed him to be aggressive with that fastball, and again, going back to that last start, it was just, here you go, hit it, because he could not locate the breaking ball.
It's an interesting question that gets into the psyche and the psychology of a pitcher and the makeup of a pitcher of, do they pitch better when they're ahead or when they're behind? There are a lot of guys that pitch really well in games that are that don't matter, games that you're way out, way behind. You come in relief, you pitch a couple innings, ho hum, no big deal. But when you get a lead and you start to smell it, what do you do then? And that's really what his situation has been. Cardinals have gotten him leads, and he's maintained them.
You always hear about that two-seamer the Cardinals have pushed year in and year out on their pitchers, and that misses just outside. And you think about the loss of velocity with the 4-seamer and the 2-seamer, and right now Lynn is throwing harder than he ever did as a minor league starter. The 2-2. And Rick, maybe you can tell our young fans at home the difference of a 4-seam fastball and the 2-seamer.
Yeah, the 4-seam, you're actually holding it across the horseshoe, the little seam that comes around the baseball, looks like a horseshoe. You're throwing your fingers across that, and it creates 4 seams cutting into the wind, and the ball's going to be straighter. Just kind of jumps a little bit maybe, but it doesn't move left or right, doesn't move down. But when you hold the ball with the 2 seams, not the horseshoe part, but with 2 seams, the ball tends to sink and move a lot more. It's not thrown as hard, basically thrown the same way, but because of the way the seams work against the wind, without getting into the physics of this, and I could give you a C- answer there, because that's what I got in physics in college, Dan, in case you didn't catch that.
I just want to know the difference of the 4-seamer and the 2-seamer. Now you're starting to talk about physics at Virginia.
Yeah, it's the Magnus effect. Why a curveball curves.
Here's a 3-2 pitch, and that's a line shot into left center field. The runner was off with the pitch. With this count, they'll wave him in all the way from first base, and Alvarez will score, and the Pirates get on the board, and it's 4-1. Barmes with the RBI, and that is his 3rd of the year.
The jump of Alvarez 2 outs. Only got one thing in mind, and that's scoring. Starting to make a contribution for the Pirates. He was as down as any big league player I might say I've ever seen, Dan. The guy, I mean, he could not hit at all when the Cardinals saw him late in the season last year, Alvarez. And in my mind, I thought maybe he was just almost past the point of no return as to whether or not he was going to make it as a big league. Even though he's young, his experience was just so bad night after night.
Here's a 1-0 to Rod Barajas. 1 ball, 1 strike. So you're saying it was more, in your opinion, between the ears than it was physical.
Well, it starts physical, then it gets between the ears, then you're really in trouble. Because once you go to the plate expecting to make an out, chances are pretty good that that's what's going to happen.
1 ball, 1 strike on the backstop for Pittsburgh. Here's the breaking ball. May have been the first real sharp curveball we've seen from Lance Lynn, that last pitch.
Been throwing a bit of a split tonight, which I hadn't really seen him throw before, maybe as his changeup. And the curveball is other secondary pitch. Fastball still his best pitch.
We talked about Lynn and really working with that lower half. Something they've worked on. Dyer Miller, who saw Lance Lynn when he first signed, said that they have used that body, that big body, as an asset to what he's doing on the mound. Why not? Get that behind you, lower half, and drive. The 2-2 pitch.
Well, you mentioned that his velocity was lower in the minor leagues. He's throwing harder than he did then. It wasn't that he couldn't do it. He actually developed this thought in his mind, and he talked about it a lot during the caravan we were on together, that he just felt like, well, I want to have command. So I took a look. I just want to make sure I'm throwing strikes, and I really wasn't giving it the maximum effort. And then I found that when I started to kind of air it out, I still had the same kind of command. I was just throwing it harder.
Sure. He also has the complete trust of his catcher. He was telling me the other day that Molina puts down the sign. There is no disagreement. He said those two have been on the same page, and in his mind, Yachty knows this league so well and knows his strengths with those hitters that whatever he does, they're set to go. 3-2 pitch. Line drive into right field, and Beltran will make the catch. Vargas stranded at second base. Pirates get on the board, and it's a 4-1 lead midway through 2. #1 overall pick that year. No major league experience. He's suspended right now for 50 games. Violation of the substance abuse policy. Pedro Alvarez, 2nd overall. We know what he's done. Brett Laurie was picked up for Sean Markham, and he was with Milwaukee, 16th overall. And then you see Lance Lynn, 39th overall, the first pitcher to 4 wins. And he's actually done something that Chris Carpenter had never done here in St. Louis, which is the sub-2 ERA and the 4 wins to start a season in the month of April.
Outstanding start for Lance Lynn. The other part about looking at drafts, you always have to consider that some are high school choices, and you expect that they're going to take an extra 2 or 3 years to develop, maybe more. If you get a good young player, you're expecting him to be in the big leagues by maybe 22 or 23. College pitcher, you want him to be as close to ready as you can be, and yeah, you got to refine him a bit, but if you're competing, you're going to Omaha, you're playing in the College World Series, you're not really that far away from being a AA or a AAA player.
Furcal rips it into right center field. Hustling out of the box, he'll take the wide turn at first and stops right there. Rafael Furcal is 2 for 2 and now 13 for 36 against this right-hander.
Pitch up in the eyes of Furcal. He just jumps on it, stays on top of it, lines it over the head of Neil Walker.
It talked about for some college pitchers dealing with the actual baseball in professional ball. It's hard for them, especially if they're a curveball pitcher, to get used to it. The seams are down, not as elevated. They're pretty high when you grab a college baseball. They also say that it's much different for the Japanese pitchers that come over to the States.
A lot of differences going from college to professional. I found one of the best differences is after the game you don't have to go home and study. So I kind of like that. Think about a college player. They got 2 jobs going on at the same time. Now, maybe they're not all doing that. They're supposed to be, Dan.
And my college experience was a little different than yours.
Okay.
Here's John Jay.
But you're traveling around. You're on buses. You're playing in front of, in some cases, bigger crowds. In some cases, not. Different kind of fields. You're representing the town in a different way as opposed to representing your college with alumni around the country. You're really representing the city that you're living in. And that's a kind of a neat experience. Some guys stay with families.
2-0 the count. Let's see if they want to start Rafael Furcal. Jay with a base hit and a run scored back in the first inning. 2 balls and 1 strike.
I like the hit and run here. You made him throw a strike. You have a big hole on the right side. You've got room there if you throw something in. Shortstop will probably be covering second base on the steal attempt. I'd push it.
There he goes. And it is a stolen base for Furcal. Where's that protective gear on the left hand you see there? Injury he's dealt with the last couple of seasons. And primarily it's because of what you just saw when he slides head first. Not to get it caught on the bag.
4 for 4 in stolen bases. Got a decent jump. Throw a bit low, it would have been bang bang if it was right on the base. And you wonder if that was just appeared to be a straight steal as opposed to John Jay protecting him, unless he saw that it was a good jump by Furcal and just let him go. Some hitters are capable of doing that. Tough for a lefty, though, to see the jump of the runner on first.
Count is even, 2-2. Matt Holliday is on deck. And that hit John Jay. So dead ball. Jay is hit by the pitch, and another opportunity for Matt Holliday. Hitting the road will take us with you. Fox Sports Midwest and Cardinals baseball. Visit Cardinals.com to order and get more details. MLB.tv. Baseball is everywhere. Matt Holliday with an RBI first time up. Now with 16. And a good start to this series. And Burnett is in trouble again in his second inning of work. A.J. Burnett fractured the orbital bone when working on a bunting drill this spring, so got a late start to his season after the trade from New York. And he has had all kinds of odd injuries in his career. He stepped into a gutter while bowling and broke his foot. Broke his other foot running on a treadmill. The 0-1 pitch. Tore a ligament in his hand during fielding practice. He blistered his throwing hand when ironing a pair of jeans. So he's run the gamut as far as some of those odd injuries.
Jeremy Affeld got hurt this week. Reliever, left-handed reliever, catching his son, who was glad to see him and jumped into his arms when he came home from a trip.
There's a ground ball, base hit for Kyle, being waved home. He will score. There's no throw, no play. Holliday delivers again, and it's 5-1. And Jeremy Affeld of the Giants sprained his MCL because of his son jumping into his arms. There's the base hit for Matt Holliday.
Replay of the first inning so far as the top of the order is concerned. We'll see if Beltran can follow suit.
And speaking of Carlos, let's check in with Jim Hayes. Jim.
Yeah, Carlos came into this game in a 3-for-32 funk. He said before the game he felt lost at the plate. Said he had been through it before, and the best way for him to get going again, keep playing. Didn't want a day off, just wanted to work in the batting cage. He said the key, getting the feel back. Based on that first at bat, guys, I think he might have done it.
This side of the plate, he talks about how he just drops the barrel of the bat. And then it just jumps, and we saw that his first time up with a 3-run homer. You don't see a lot of emotion from Carlos Beltran either. Very really even keel.
Right.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. Hammers it down the right field line, but foul.
Sometimes you see athletes like that, you can misread them and think that they do not have passion, they don't have drive, and that's often not the case. You just have a guy that does things, competes in a way that the more relaxed he can be. And baseball is a sport where you have to be relaxed physically but focused mentally, and sometimes your emotions get in the way of that relaxation if you're not careful. So you see a lot of players that just do things effortlessly.
The 0-2. And these two have seen each other a bunch in their careers, Burnett and Beltran, in their days in New York. But many of those rivalries, as Rod Barajas, has he been ejected? He just threw his glove.
Well, I don't think you throw your glove unless you were ejected. And if you throw your glove, you are then ejected. So I think we've seen the last of Barajas. He's furious with the home plate umpire, Angel Campos. And again, he's the one that made the call at first base yesterday. That Clint Hurdle question.
That last pitch awfully close, and bye-bye Clint Hurdle. Would this be the time to tell fans that Clint will be part of Christian Day at the ballpark?
I think it's a good time. We'll get him a chance to explain his emotions currently that he's going through. Both he and Mike Matheny will be speaking. Glad you brought that up just right about now, Dan. Thanks. There'll be a number of Pirate players and Cardinal players that'll be speaking after the game on June 30th. And Clint will surely calm down by then. That pitch looked low to me.
So Barajas, as well as Clint Hurdle, ejected in this game.
I'm not sure, as a pitcher, you appreciate your catcher sticking up for you, but you sure don't like
what's happened here in this inning. You've got a catcher that's got to get kind of tooled up here and enter the game, and somebody you're not kind of on the same page with necessarily today. You haven't talked through all the details about what you're trying to do. Michael McHenry is the backup catcher.
And Rick, I was about to say that the balanced schedule that you'll have next year, because of the geographic rivalries that are natural, like St. Louis, Kansas City, the two New York teams, that's clearly obvious. But those days may be over. Looking at the schedule for 2013, because of Texas saying goodbye to Houston as a National League team, moving over to the American League West. So you have a balanced schedule, and it will change how Major League Baseball will approach interleague play.
You wouldn't say the schedule has been balanced for the month of April this year, the way the Cardinals have played all their games within the division, and the Pirates have only played the Cardinals in the Central.
2-1, and here's a 1-2 pitch. 2-2. Going back to those odd injuries of A.J. Burnett, how about Jeremy Affeldt, as you said, son jumping into his arms? He also had his hand sliced up when he tried to separate frozen hamburger patties last year. So it's been a rough couple of years there for Jeremy.
Just keep him away from the power tools. Just pitch, go home, sit on the couch.
Where's he getting his meat? I mean, it slices your hand. 3-2 here on Carlos Beltran. Runners go, and that's a base hit into right. Makes it 6-1. Beltran with 4 RBIs already.
Cardinals are finding holes. They found this particular hole between first and second 3 times already. Garrett Jones can't come up with it. Good effort. For called 2 hits, John Jay's been on base twice. 2 hits for Holiday and now 2 for Beltran.
Some of the relievers for Pittsburgh at least start to stretch. Nobody throwing yet. A 6-1 lead for St. Louis. David Freese reached on an air by Pedro Alvarez, first time up. Big gap in left center. Nice play by McHenry, who is noted as a very good defensive player. That saves a run. Keeps the double play in order.
Comes right off the bench cold and has to make this play. Good form, going to his right, squaring up, making sure the chest is leaning forward. In case it bounces off your chest, it goes into the ground instead of over your head or off to the side.
Freese breaks his bat. Barmes, good concentration on this play, and they turn the double play. 6-4-3. A run does score. The 8th career start for A.J. Burnett was back in 2000. He was wearing a Florida Marlins uniform, and this guy could throw hard. He was nasty. Remember, he was upper 90s. Mike Matheny, though, would connect, and all 500 in attendance went crazy.
Speaking of guys that had strange injuries, Mike Matheny had one of his own that involved cutting his hand with a knife, with a hunting knife.
That's right. Mike picked up a triple in that game, by the way.
A triple.
A triple. That's really the main reason why we were showing that. A triple for the speedy Mike Matheny.
Probably didn't have too many.
Total of 9. I am not in the camp that believes because Mike Matheny had a sliced hand, that's why Rick Ankiel did not have success throwing strikes.
I'm not in that camp either, but I am in the camp that said that would say that the Cardinals were not as good when Mike Matheny wasn't behind the plate.
There is no question about that.
Missed him sorely.
I remember, I believe it was Carlos Hernandez then who was playing with a sore back, and Rick Ankiel had lost control in the playoffs. Mike was out. And I know Tony, along with Dave Duncan at that time, felt that if Mike would have been healthy and behind the plate, that scenario may not have unfolded. And who knows what would have happened after that. Rick was never the same.
Well, Mike Matheny wasn't going to play forever, so if Rick Ankiel was that reliant upon having Mike Matheny behind the plate every time something went bad for him, then probably wasn't a reasonable thing anyway, and would have happened at some point.
2-2 is popped foul and out of play.
But he sure has resurrected his career, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Against all odds.
Home in Washington. A 7-1 lead for Lance Lynn.
Cardinals sure have put up a lot of crooked numbers this year.
The 3-2. Into the upper deck it goes.
Always fun to see players talking baseball during a game, and you do that. When you go to spring training, you realize that you're going to have 7 months of talking baseball. They do it on the plane, they do it in the bullpen, they do it during the game, they do it in the clubhouse.
And a liner that's caught by Jones. The Cardinals with 4 in the first, 3 more this inning. 7-1, a lead for Lance Lynn. .com. And right now at Jack in the Box, you can try the new Chipotle Chicken Club Combo for just $4.99 plus tax. At Busch Stadium in St. Louis, along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. I will be along on the post-game show with hardest working man in showbiz right now, Pat Paris, with the Blues and Cardinals in full swing. Clearly, right now, the Pirates trying to get some innings out of A.J. Burnett.
No activity in their bullpen right now. The Pirates recently sent down Evan Meek, who's a guy that was an all-star out of their bullpen and just wasn't quite right. Didn't have the same velocity after being hurt. So their bullpen is still pretty strong, though. You look at Tony Watson from the left side. We've seen good work from him, and Hanrahan's as good as they come in the 9th inning, but they don't really have, you wouldn't be overly excited about their innings eaters, the guys that are going to pitch 3, 4, 5 innings out of the bullpen. And most teams, frankly, don't go to long relievers anymore. They just will use multiple guys.
Two and two the count. And a strikeout for Lynn. How about Jeff Suppan? He makes a start today for the San Diego Padres. Wins the game against, of all teams, the Milwaukee Brewers. As he wins it in his return to the big leagues, he's 1-0, and the Padres beat the Brewers 5-0. Nicely done for Jeff Suppan, who has, boy, fought himself back into the major leagues. I mean, his story right now is pretty amazing, to consider that he was willing to go down to the minor leagues for as long as he did after all the success that he had and the money that he made at this level.
Always fun to be around Jeff Suppan, one of those players that would talk throughout his day of starting and just kind of was always the same guy, never really would get uptight about anything. And I really miss doing the Suppan word of the day with him, something he and I did for years together. Suppan word today is fantastic. He had a chance to pitch in the big leagues again. Way to go, Jeff.
And the Brewers get terrible news. Matt Gamble, torn ACL, their first baseman, done for the year. Lynn able to knock it down, settles, and makes the play. McLeod is retired for the third and final out. A 1-2-3 inning for Lance Lynn. Cardinals on top. Ask the Expert. Chats on FoxSportsMidwest.com, and our next chat will be hosted by BJ Rains. That's tomorrow afternoon during the Pirates game. Ask the Experts at FoxSportsMidwest.com. Mike Matheny and the Cardinals with a lead of 7-1 against A.J. Burnett and the Pirates. Press conference today, Rick, and it'll be the third annual PNC Bank High School Showcase at Busch Stadium, which Mike and John Mabry have been a part of the last 2 years. So you're going to look at Matt Carpenter. So it's the top players in Missouri and Illinois, and essentially the all-stars of the state come together, square off here at Busch Stadium. June 18th. And Carpenter on a pitch that was up, lines it into center. The best part about this is that this year, and Mike wanted to talk about this very much, about getting the kids involved outside of what happens between the white lines, and they'll actually have a clinic on June 11th, and they'll do that at Mike Matheny's Catch 22 accessible baseball field in Chesterfield. So the handicapped children that have a chance to play on that just unbelievable field that Mike and his foundation built will work with some of the all-stars of high school. I said, what do those guys ask you? You're in the dugout, and you're a former major leaguer. John is too. He said, first of all, what do the guys drive? That was one of the main questions. What do the major leaguers drive? And then after that, they said, all right, let's talk some baseball.
The older you get, the question they ask is, are you sure you really played? I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question, really. And then it might kind of flow into, did you know Ozzie Smith? You get interesting questions from folks as time passes, and you have that transition from player to coach, and it's interesting that Mike and John Mabry have both made that so quickly, and they are passionate about what they're doing right now. The other coaches the Cardinals have been doing this a long time. Jose Oquendo, Chris Maloney, Dyer Miller.
Ripped into right center field. Carpenter to second. On his way to third. He'll be waved home. Descalso. He'll dig for three. He is safe. In there with a triple, and a run scores. 8-1 St. Louis.
A.J. Burnett only had 48 pitches coming into this inning, and even though the Cardinals have hit him well, they're just trying to get him some more work. Location has been an issue. That's where the pitch was supposed to be, and that's where it was. Up in the eyes of Descalso, who gets on top of this pitch and drives it into the gap. He was blown away in his first at-bat, but comes through here in the Cardinals' third. 10 hits already for St. Louis.
No activity for the Pirates in their bullpen. Here's Lance Lynn.
Trying to get 4 innings out of A.J. Burnett, and we'll see if it pays off for Pittsburgh. So far, it doesn't seem like it does here in the third inning. The Cardinals are still raking, and they're doing a lot of first ball hitting, too.
Back to Burnett with the infield drawn in, despite the fact they're down by 7. Burnett makes that play, and there's 1 out. Pitch count only at 54 for A.J. Burnett.
Part of that's the first ball hitting the Cardinals are doing. They're doing a lot of damage quickly. A lot of hitters will tell you the best pitch you're going to see in an at-bat might be that first pitch. Pinch hitters especially need to be looking for a first pitch fastball that you can drive. Pitchers trying to get ahead of you. From a hitter's point of view, don't let them.
In the dirt, blocked.
What's interesting about that, Dan, is that a lot of fans will get frustrated when it's not working. Say you have an inning where you just ground out 3 times on 5 pitches. You say, wow, they're not taking enough pitches. Well, maybe they're swinging at the best pitch they're going to see. They're just not executing. But there's nothing wrong with the philosophy.
2-0 on Rafael Furcal. There's a fly ball into center. Descalso tagging up from third, and a high throw. 9-1 St. Louis.
Furcal gets the job done. This throw just airmailed. Not the intent of the former Gold Glover Nate McLeod to throw the ball with that trajectory. I don't think he's going to get him anyway.
Furcal picks up the 12th RBI of the year for the Cardinal leadoff man, and a strike at the knees. John Jay has been hit by a pitch and has also singled. The first 4 have reached 8 times in this game.
Another crooked number for the Cardinals.
Pirates have spent an awful lot of money during Neil Huntington's 4 years at the helm. Nearly $50 million developing talent and the draft. Trying to turn the page on all this losing. That all changes, though, and it hurts teams like Pittsburgh if you just want to be spending wildly, if that would be your philosophy on draft picks, because teams now are assigned a signing bonus the first 10 rounds. If you go over that, you get taxed. Baseball America had their farm system at number 13 in the major leagues at last check. The 2-2.
And part of that tax issue is to try to help with some of the small market, large market discrepancies that baseball still has when you look at cities like Detroit now, and of course New York and Boston always. You've got clubs that have much bigger markets, therefore much bigger revenue, and you have the ability to draft and spend better than everybody else does. It kind of messes up the playing field a bit. And you still have to spend wisely even if you have that advantage. There's no sure sign that throwing money at a player is going to make it all work. The Yankees went through some really lean years, making a lot of big mistakes with that.
Off the glove of A.J. Burnett, and a base hit for John Jay.
A.J. Burnett just cannot seem to get the ball down here tonight in St. Louis. Everything's up in the zone. This pitch knocked back up the box, and things just not going his way. Didn't stab the ball, wasn't able to make that play. Wasn't an easy play. And of course, instead of bouncing right to a fielder, it bounces away from Barmes, and his agony continues. And now he has to face Matt Holliday, who has a chance to make it a lot worse. As if 9 runs and 11 hits isn't bad enough.
He signed a big deal, 5 years, over $82 million for the New York Yankees. And the Yankees are paying over half of what's left. The contract of A.J. Burnett. You know, and that's so many times gets overlooked, where a large market team can ship a guy away and say, yeah, we'll just pay $15, $20 million, whatever the case may be, to say goodbye. And small market teams just cannot afford to make mistakes if they feel it's a mistake on some of the players that they have. If you're going to sign a guy 5 years, you better be pretty sure.
Yeah, addition by subtraction is what you're talking about, and sometimes that works. That's what the Cubs have done during the offseason, or attempting to do. They've gotten rid of a lot of salary to do that. But as you say, if you're a small market club, you don't have anything to add back to that. What do? You're stuck. You're just going to play minor leaguers for a while. You get a guy in a contract situation that is beneficial to the player, and you think of Soriano maybe as a good example for the Cubs, where people don't really want him. Not that he's a terrible player, he's just not worth what his contract is right now. So you've got nobody that wants to trade for him, and so you're stuck.
The 3-1 pitch to Matt Holliday. And that's a walk. Carlos Beltran to face Burnett. Big night already for the Cardinal right fielder. starts back in the first inning and a long home run.
A long home run on a nice, easy swing, too, from Beltran, and he has been off track, but not so far tonight. A ground ball single to the right side. 4 RBIs on the night for Beltran. And we're in the bottom of the third. Just thought I'd remind you of that, Dan.
That's only the first walk allowed by Burnett as the Pirates trail 9-1. We're at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, Missouri. Home to the world champions. Dan McLaughlin, Rick Horton, Jim Hayes with you. Beltran with 4 RBIs this evening. Runners at first and second. McLeod, the center fielder, shading Beltran to pull. Big gap in left center.
Athletes of all sports talk about needing to slow the game down and be in command and control of it when things are kind of falling apart, as they have for A.J. Burnett. Everything's going so quickly. Your mind's racing. Your heart's racing. You're backing up third base every 4th pitch you throw. You cannot calm yourself well enough to get back on track and say, look, I've just got to get a couple more innings in. But that's what he's trying to do for his team right here, and I give him credit. He's not quitting. He's still going after it, but boy, the game's fast for him right now.
2-0.
The strike zone gets smaller in your mind. You just feel like, boy, I don't know where I'm going to throw it. The hitter seems to be almost invincible. Doesn't have any holes in his zone all of a sudden, and very frustrating to be in this situation.
Here's a 2-0 pitch on its way. Beltran with a high fly ball. Left center, will it carry? Yes! No, it's off the top of the wall. They start the music for a home run. It's up on the board as a home run. 2-run score. We may have a replay here. Here comes Mike Matheny. Either way, what a night for Carlos Beltran.
It appeared that ball was over the wall in left center field. The second base umpire is the crew chief, Dale Scott. He saw it as off the top of the wall, but he's agreeing with Mike Matheny that it's a common sense thing to do to check a replay.
So it's under review, and you know, the Cardinals this time last week had a couple of plays that I'm sure they would love to have seen reviewed with replay, and that's a look at the home run replay review. And remember, Rick, it was a blown call at second, blown call at home that cost them against the Chicago Cubs. But Mike Matheny, despite being on the losing end of those reviews, or lack thereof, said, I really don't want replay in baseball.
And I would concur with that, but I'm always amazed by the one right in the middle there that says managers cannot demand a replay. Well, that's basically what happens every time it is. The manager goes out and says, I want it. They say, okay, and they do it. So I don't understand why that rule is in there that says managers cannot demand a review. Maybe it means they can ask for one, but they can't demand it. I don't know what the difference would be, but honestly, you know, the manager in this case is doing the right thing since that's the rule. Mike Matheny may not like this rule, this replay, but he's going to use it if it's in.
Mike needs to throw on a helmet and some shoulder pads and then throw out a flag. You know, just
right.
Let's get a football feel going to this thing.
And you've only got so many per 9 innings.
Right.
Save it up.
He's a Michigan guy, you know, he's tough. Regardless, it's 2 more RBIs for Carlos Beltran, which would give him 6. There is a little bar by the fans, and I'm not sure if it hit that.
It looks like it may have hit on the top of the wall, and that clearly is a home run. That replay, if once they get to that replay, they're going to say home run. Beltran's going to have home run number 7. his second of the night. A.J. Burnett, you know, frankly, probably doesn't care too much at this point. It's still not much better, but this is going to be a home run.
Give that fan credit for getting away from the baseball, too. You never know if he reaches over, if that would mix it up, and how you would take a look at this home run review. It is a home run. A 2-home run night for Carlos Beltran. This one a 3-run homer, and what a night it is. That's 7 RBIs.
One more look, the home run, it's over the wall. The fans knew it. All you had to do was ask them. Didn't need a replay.
The guys in the scoreboard room, they had it right. They knew. They had the
fireworks guy
fireworks going and the music. A.J. Burnett to just prolong the inevitable. 12-1 St. Louis. It's a place where youth can reach their full potential as productive, caring, responsible citizens. To learn more, please visit greatfutures.org/Fox Sports. Last time scoring 10 or more runs in consecutive games back in 2008. And this is our Chevy call to the pen.
I did say this was going to be a good pitcher's duel tonight, didn't I? I think I said that last night.
I was with you. I liked it on paper.
10-7 last night. Cardinals certainly have figured out something offensively. They could not hit Pittsburgh at all in Pittsburgh.
I think you hit it on the head, though. A couple things. Number one, a lot of pitches up from A.J. Burnett. But the other thing, very aggressive early in counts. I mean, it started from the very first pitch of the game.
Yeah, aggressiveness really matters in this game. Adam Wainwright has shown something different in his last 2 outings from the pitcher's point of view, that he's just attacking hitters. Well, the Cardinals batters just attacked Burnett today. It wasn't a, hey, I'll just wait and get a couple of strikes and try to do a defensive swing. I'm going right at him, and plenty of success here tonight.
So Brad Lincoln comes into the ballgame, walks the first man. That's Freese, and now Yadier Molina. And Rick, it'll be interesting to see how Mike Matheny wants to play the rest of the night. In particular, with a guy like Yadier Molina at the plate. Tomorrow, day game at 12:45. You are up by a huge score. It is early, and this is where throughout the season not many off days this month. You can buy some of these guys some time off.
And he's been talking about needing to do that anyway for some of his players. Get him time off. Really interesting that Cat was kind of on that story with Carlos Beltran, that he didn't want the days off because he needed it to get back on track. But Mike Matheny's going to have to find a way to get some of his regulars some rest here tonight. It's been all St. Louis. Division of Tourism. All you need to go is to visitmo.com and start planning your next Missouri getaway. This is the Bonne Terre Mine. At one time, the richest lead ore was located here in Bonne Terre, and that's where the town gets its name, meaning good earth. Visitmo.com. Beautiful state. And what a job by Carlos Beltran, Cardinal right fielder. Cardinals have pounded out 12 runs on 12 hits, and he is all smiles here tonight. 7 RBIs for Beltran.
He should be all smiles with this kind of night.
Don't blame him a bit.
Jose Tabata. In a game like this, and we've seen at times where Lance Lynn is struggling to find control with that breaking ball. Is this a way that he can tinker with it a little bit, live action in a 12-1 lead? Or is it something where you say, no, I'll work on it in my side session and let's pump some strikes?
Tinker with it a little would be what I would suggest. He still has a job to do. He still has hitters to get out. You don't want to go away from what's been working, because you might develop some bad habits that last towards your next start. So you just keep. I don't think you let off the pedal. You just do what you're doing. Might experiment a little bit with a pitch or two, but his job is to just get 3 guys out every inning, and that's the way he has to think. Back to the thought about Yadier Molina and getting him some time off. Part of the reason you need to leave Molina in at least a little while longer is for your starting pitcher and make sure he's there. There are other guys you can get some rest, but I would suggest after 5 or 6 innings that Molina is done for the night. And there's another strikeout for Lance Lynn on the check swing, and Tabata doesn't like the call. Home plate umpire said it was off his bat, therefore a call third strike that Molina caught. He doesn't agree, and they haven't won an argument with the home plate umpire yet tonight.
So Tabata,
not sure that did hit his bat.
I think he's got a beef.
I think he does.
Strikeout number 3 for Lance Lynn, and it brings in Walker. And Walker slices one foul and out of play. Neil Walker dealing with playing at the major leagues, but playing in his hometown of Pittsburgh. High draft choice, and David Freese knows all about that. Cardinals third baseman. You know, David Freese, that was the first trade that John Mozeliak ever made as the official general manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, he was behind many deals and helping out with Walt Jocketty, and John has been with the Cardinals for a number of years prior to being the GM, but ran the farm system, did the draft, assistant GM, and now the GM. But I'll tell you what, saying that the other day, that trade's going down as one of the greatest Cardinals have made when you think about picking up David Freese and what he has meant to this club. Saturday, May 12th, take home a collectible St. Louis Cardinals 2011 World Champions pin, compliments of AT&T. That's for all fans. Visit cardinals.com/promotions. And you put the one of the greatest trades title on it because of what he did last postseason. And arguably one of the greatest games ever. Game 6 of the World Series, and David comes through.
Most exciting game I've ever seen.
Slices foul and out of play.
The greatest trade, of course, in Cardinal fandom would any conversation about that would have to include Ernie Broglio and Lou Brock.
Now, when you talk about Freese's trade and how you want to define it as being one of the greatest, if not a very good one, but you just put in the significance of what he's meant with those key moments. You know, you had Edmonds at that time and the tail end of his career. Remarkable time here in St. Louis. You didn't know about David Freese. He emerges out of nowhere and develops into an outstanding player. And you know, he's going to get a hard look right now, I would think, for the all-star team of the National League. And apparently it's never too early to start talking about all-star teams because the voting begins basically in spring training.
It does. The lobbying, did you say, or the voting?
Both. Here's a ground ball to first and taken easily by Carpenter. It's all St. Louis tonight. 12-1. Fan guide for a chance to win a VIP experience for 2 this year at a Major League Baseball World Series game presented by Scott's, the official lawn care company of MLB. Here's Matt Carpenter. We're underway in the home half of the 4th, and St. Louis with a lead. That's right, of 12-1 if you're just joining us.
Still more outs to get, still more work to be done, but the Cardinals getting themselves in a position for their first sweep of the year.
Extra bases here for Matt Carpenter. It'll go into the corner. Carpenter is digging for 2. Why not 3? On his way to third. In there with a triple. Standing up to start the bottom of the 4th.
Ball right down the line. Tabata a bit casual in that right field corner, coming up with that ball. Perhaps not respecting fully the speed of Matt Carpenter. And he's not a blazer, but stand-up triple, no problem whatsoever. Tabata just maybe waiting for that ball to bounce off into the corner, and Never really did, and he just kind of slow played it a bit.
I thought he was waiting for that to hit the State Farm sign and was kind of caught in no man's land.
Could be.
If it hits that, it comes maybe back towards the infield. And once he saw it go into the corner, it was uh-oh. And Carpenter was off to the races.
Probably just took a bad route on it. That's probably how we saw it. Either way, it's a triple for the Cardinals, and they've had a ton of those this year.
It's a second one tonight for St. Louis.
I'm one of those fans of baseball, and people would disagree about this. And what do you like to watch in baseball? I'd rather see a triple than a home run. Triple to me is a more exciting play in baseball than a home run.
See, now that's a better question for David Freese. Did you like the triple or did you like the home run better, David? Game 6.
I think all of the above.
So now you're changing and saying I love all.
Well, wait a minute, you're talking about the 6th game of the World Series now. Okay. Now we're talking.
I put you on the spot.
I just like being there.
That was pretty nice,
Good enough. That was plenty good enough.
Here's a 2-1 pitch. Popped up. Long way to go for Presley near the side wall, and no catch. We were talking about the All-Star game, and Tony La Russa will manage one more time. He will manage in the Midsummer Classic, the All-Star game for the National League.
Yeah, and Dan, I actually have some misgivings about that. I have great respect for Tony La Russa, but if this is a game that counts, I find it a little strange that Bud Selig is allowing, although, again, I love Tony La Russa, love what he's done here. He needs to be honored, but to be managing a game that counts when he works for MLB seems a little bit wrong to me. It seems as if he doesn't really have the right skin in the game here to be representing the National League. Certainly he's going to do his job. I don't question his integrity.
And be competitive.
And he's going to be competitive, but the fact that the game counts in the first place already rubs me the wrong way, but the fact that now you're going to be setting a precedent that somebody that doesn't even represent your league anymore is going to manage a game that counts, that will affect the World Series that year, that just doesn't seem right.
Scalzo pulls it foul, so having said that, then what would you think would be the right choice?
Well, I think you should make him the honorary manager and let him be there and honor him as you should fully. And I don't think a Cardinal should manage it. I think basically the team that loses the NLCS becomes the manager.
Ron
Renicke's your manager. That's what I would do.
2-2 pitch, and Descalso strikes out.
Let Tony be the bench coach. Running fastball away from Descalso.
Yeah, and knowing Tony like we do, and I know you believe this, that he will treat that like Game 7 of the World Series. He will be competitive.
No question about that.
Yeah.
It's always a dicey thing in a not in a World Series, in an All-Star game anyway, because you are dealing with other people's players, and you already have a burden of protecting them and using them properly and not overusing them. And now you've got the added problem of having to win this exhibition game, which, again, I find to be the wrong thing for baseball. But now he's representing some Cardinal players that he doesn't even lead anymore. Now Mike Matheny may say, I don't want you to use my guys in this situation, and you always get that kind of feedback when you're the manager of an all-star team. There'll be guys that will kind of influence you. Well, I want them to be there, but don't use it. They'll give you little tips about how to use their players. And I just find that's putting Tony in a rough spot.
1 out, runner at third, 0-2 on Lynn. And that's a strikeout. He knew it. Back-to-back Ks. Second for Lincoln. And it brings in Furcal.
4 at-bats in 4 innings for Furcal.
Ron Washington will be the manager for the American League. And the way things are going, he might be the manager next year, too. They are a tremendous ball club.
They sure are.
Texas Rangers at 17-7 and tied with the Dodgers for the best record in baseball. For Kyle tonight, 2 runs scored, a single, sac fly, RBI.
Be interesting to know the real purpose of that pitch.
In your opinion, was there a purpose? Potentially?
I feel there's almost always a purpose.
Well, balls do, pitches get away.
Well, I'm not fully against pitchers doing that every once in a while. Not try to hit somebody, but just to kind of keep a team loose. And, what you don't know is what's going on chatter-wise on the field. I mean, there are times where guys make a statement that it's more often that than it is just production.
And the 1-1 is hit to second. Walker has it. Carpenter the triple, but left stranded at third. Lincoln a couple of strikeouts and gets out of the jam. Scored 6 tonight. Matter of fact, they have put up 12. Any size drink is just 50 cents all day tomorrow at your nearest On the Run and Mobile. This year, 6 is a serious number.
Quite a difference in the offense from last series to this series between the Pirates and the Cardinals. 191 at-bats the last series, just 2 home runs. This series, both clubs swinging the bat with a little more authority. Carlos Beltran breaking out here tonight, and Lance Lynn has been tough again. Just 2 hits through 4 innings.
Garrett Jones leading it off here in the 5th inning. All right, how about on the other side? Rick, we've talked about Lance Lynn's approach, and you're up by 11. What about when you're down by 11, the approach of these hitters and the opposing manager, the team as a whole?
Well, you have a different approach for the pitchers than you do the hitters. The pitchers are really treating it as their game. It's a little bit easier from the pitcher's point of view because you're always thinking about it being your game. If you come in to pitch 2 innings, if you're Brad Lincoln or whoever we're going to see after that, you realize this is your shot to pitch for the next 3 days, and you better get the job done, and regardless of the score. A little simpler there. For the hitters, you got to find a way to get yourself amped up for every at-bat and say that, okay, this is a chance for me to get back on track. And maybe I am swinging the bat well, I want to stay there. So keep having quality at-bats. Yeah, the running game's out the window for both teams, essentially. But you still keep hitting, you still keep pitching.
That's hit to third. 1 away.
Pete Rose used to say that 1 at-bat a week that you give away is the difference between hitting 250 and 300. And if you think about it over the course of a year and do the math, he's right. 1 hit a week is the difference between 250 and 300.
Clint Barmas, shortstop for the Pirates, and he looks at a strike. Pirates with only 2 base hits against Lynn tonight. Another grounder that's foul. Hey, you watch Lance Lynn, Rick, and there's nothing really fancy about him. He just flat out gets after it. He's aggressive.
And he does not have a complicated motion, which I think is a good thing for a starting pitcher to have, because it helps your motion be repeatable. If you're going to throw 100 pitches in a game, you want to be essentially in the same arm slot, the same spot with your body. He's pretty uncomplicated, just picks it up and lets it go. And he's not a 100% guy. Yeah, I mean, he's working hard and he's throwing it, but he's not like, say, Jason Mott out of the bullpen. You know he's throwing every pitch as hard as he can. Lynn is dialed down a bit from that, say 95%.
Another chance for David Freese. 2 outs. Freese, another guy. This time last year, you would try to buy yourself a little time here and there, give him some innings off, but David saying that he is fully healed in the ankles and the arm area that he was hit by pitch, which really was a blessing in disguise last year.
Well, anytime you say anything negative against David Freese in the Midwest and in Cardinal country right now, you're going to get run out of town. So I'm going to say this advisedly, but I think there were times last year, and injuries may be part of that, but I don't think his defense in later innings was comfortable. I mean, I think the Cardinals were much more comfortable with Descalso playing third than David Freese, not just for health reasons, but for defensive reasons. So I think that was a bit of a liability, but this year I think he's improved. I think he's much more comfortable there. It appears to me that he wants the ball hit to him. And there were times towards the end last year, and maybe injury related, where he seemed just a little unsure to me.
0-2 the count on Michael McHenry. Remember, Barajas was ejected. Matter of fact, Daniel Descalso finished up in the top 2 or 3, the balloting for the Gold Glove of third baseman in the National League. He was a finalist. 0-2 pitch, and a swing and a miss. 95 miles an hour for Lance Lynn. Only 2 hits allowed as he's struck out 4. Middle of the lineup coming up. Dard 1-4. Jake Westbrook at 3-1 will come your way at noon. Our pregame show tomorrow on Fox Sports Midwest. It's tough just to win a World Series, but then to do it back-to-back. How about in the last 4 major sports, the champions that went back-to-back? Yankees at 1.3 in a row. You have the Lakers and Detroit, New England. It's tough to do.
More teams, more parity.
There's John Jay, and Cardinals will face lefty and Bedard tomorrow. He's 1-4, but his ERA is 2.48. Hear that word parity, and seeing that graphic, it may surprise you to hear that word when you think about Major League Baseball, but then you go over last decade or so and the various winners in the game. And for a while, I think many around the game and just fans in general thought it's either going to be Boston or New York, the Yankees. And a lot of the attention is put towards them, but they spend a lot of money too.
Yeah, and the wild card has certainly created more opportunities for teams to compete in the playoffs and hot teams to maybe make a difference. Teams that maybe not even reaching 90 wins during the season get a chance to get hot at the end and end up World Series champs.
I know you were upset because of Spygate, and you were ready to take your monitor and just throw it out of the booth. You saw that pop up. To calm you down, and everything's going to be all right.
Yeah, I don't get upset, Dan. You know
that. Here's Shane Robinson. So Holiday had taken out of the game, and he was on base 3 times. Shane Robinson, I found it interesting. Mike Matheny the other day saying that, you know, Shane still had to play his way onto the team as far as staying here.
Right.
You know, Komatsu was a guy that, because of Alan Craig being healthy, was the odd man out, but Robinson would have possibly been in that conversation if he gotten off to a slow start, and he has not. He's hit .419 and very much above average when you talk about his defense.
Surprising pop, too, from Robinson. Been an effective pinch hitter, 3 for 7 in the pinch. Interesting to see what his ceiling will be as a major league player. Everyday player, role player, 300 hitter. Hard to tell with him.
I would imagine because of his size, he has been battling a label probably his entire baseball career, at least professional baseball career, of being a guy that, he's an overachiever. Maybe he'll be our 4th or 5th outfielder. You know, those kind of things, because a guy isn't that big, overpowering brute that you might see playing in the outfield of a major league team. Would you agree?
Yeah, you get some almost prototypes that you put in your mind as a scout and as a general manager of what you want your outfielders to look like, and you want to get as many of the tools as you can get. The strong arm guy, the home run hitter, especially in the corner outfield.
Robinson with a high fly ball, right field. Catch is made, and there's one away. Playoff hockey still going, and the Blues find themselves in a hole. And you can watch us after every single Blues playoff game. The post-game show. Guys are out in L.A. right now. And we'll have it for you tomorrow. The post-game show, Missouri Lottery Blues Live. What a night so far here for Carlos Beltran. Pair of 3-run homers. Beltran with a base hit into right. He is 4 for 4.
Another aggressive at bat for Beltran. First ball swinging. Pitch in on his fists. What a night for Beltran.
Tony Cruz will pinch hit for David Freese.
Carlos said he wanted to swing his way out of this, right? And then
He's
what he
done
told,
that,
isn't
yeah.
what he told Jim?
Yeah. He has done that this evening. Has equaled a career best for Carlos Beltran this 4-hit night. Tony Cruz originally came up through the minor leagues as a third baseman. He can also play first, and now he is the backup catcher here in St. Louis. Cruz, liner, and that's a double play. Hard hit ball, but to Garrett Jones and the double play. We played 5, and it's 12-1. Burnett, those two this year, back on the 21st of April, 7 innings, 3 hits. The surprise start for everybody, including him, as he was called up from his rehab assignment. And then tonight, 2 2/3, 12 hits, the 12 earned runs. Outside of the obvious, what did you see with A.J. Burnett?
Well, part of the obvious is the pitch is up. He also didn't really seem to have the same zip on his fastball, Dan. He was very tough in Pittsburgh, unhittable at times. Cardinals also were in a bit of a hitting funk at the time, which I think is part of the issue. They weren't swinging the bat well in Pittsburgh, then in Chicago. So that's part of the equation. The Cardinals certainly have figured some things out.
Got Cruz in the ball game. He's catching. Robinson is in left field. Matt Carpenter shifts over to the other side of the diamond. He's at third, and Yadier Molina is at first. And Navarro is the pinch hitter. Lance Lynn has been efficient tonight. Lots of ground ball outs to go along with the 4 strikeouts. Only issues he's had was the 2 hits he allowed. Alvarez a single, then the double by Barmes back in the 2nd inning. That has been it. It's 10 straight that he is set down. did you see with A.J. Burnett with his fastball too? You know, something else that really stood out as well was the fact that it was up, but
no doubt
didn't seem like he had the life that he had in that first start.
Now the diminished velocity, and
yeah,
curveball break was kind of okay, but he really didn't get ahead enough counts to put guys away with his good curveball, because the Cardinals were first ball fastball hitting, and his fastball wasn't sharp, and they just kept jumping on him.
2-2 the count on Navarro. You know, we've talked so much too about how players rely on video. Wasn't like that first go around that they had never seen A.J. Burnett. There's a big swing and a miss on a breaking ball. Fox Saturday Baseball returns this week. Brewers and the San Francisco Giants, with the White Sox and the Tigers from the American League Central. Fox Saturday Baseball, 2:30. Check local listings for the game in your area. A.J. Burnett, plenty of video, plenty of scouting. They had seen some of those minor league rehab starts, at least gotten reports on them. So just a tale of two different starts tonight.
Video has its value, but the experience of what you do on the field is infinitely more important. And it could be that the Cardinals learned something about him.
You think about Charlie Morton too. His first start against the Cardinals was very good, and he was roughed up second go around last night. Burnett this evening. Popped up to the left side. Shane Robinson. You don't want to miss it. Sunday, May 3rd against the Braves, and Sunday, May 13th against the Braves. The David Freese bobblehead presented by Scott's, MVP of the NLCS and World Series. David Freese and his bobblehead coming up on the 13th of May. And that Friday night is the Tony La Russa retirement. You would have to think the Cardinals may have something planned for Chipper Jones for that weekend.
Could be.
And the final time that he'll be in St. Louis playing for the Braves.
You mentioned, Dan, there'll be a lot of folks coming into town for Tony's celebration, and I think Cardinal fans are looking forward to that opportunity to honor him. This is storytelling day in the bullpen.
But Dyer Miller, he could tell the story or two, huh?
Yeah, as if every day is not storytelling day in the bullpen.
Here's a 2-0 pitch. Taken high by Nate McLeod.
Does beg the question of how long you go with Lance Lynn. Probably be a pitch count question for him. Up around 80 right now.
Well, we mentioned David Freese and the trade made by John Mozeliak. Last year he goes out and he gets Lance Berkman. Many around baseball thought he was done. Then you look at a guy like Beltran. You got to figure his numbers will be pretty good before it's all said and done. And he's had a big night with 4 hits. Nice play at second. Will it be a night off for those guys? It's 12-1 St. Louis. reverse recap. And it's all St. Louis as we move to the home half of the 6th, a 12-1 lead. Beltran with 7 RBIs. That's a career high. AJ Burnett, short outing, and Lance Lynn, only 2 hits allowed. He's been terrific tonight. He has the chance to be the first National League pitcher to go to 5-0.
13 straight batters retired for Lynn. He has maintained the foot to the pedal, Dan. He hasn't changed a bit, even with the big lead. Yadier Molina stayed in the game. He's playing first base now, but Molina has really done a nice job working with the young pitcher Lance Lynn and making him maybe a little bit more wise beyond his years than you would expect. Seems very comfortable in everything that he does. And you mentioned that when you're not shaking off the catcher at all, you've got to give him some credit too.
His comfort level, he'll tell us, is that he prefers the starting rotation than the bullpen, but as all players that are young in the game will tell you, they prefer a job in the big leagues.
Always the answer.
Here is Chris Resop. He was the unsung hero of the Pirates bullpen last year. 69 2/3 innings, 9th in the National League a year ago. 4th round pick by the Marlins, and at that time he was an outfielder. Turned into a pitcher now after he dislocated his left shoulder swinging the bat in 2003 at A-ball. 3rd year with Pittsburgh. He's been with Atlanta, the Angels, the Marlins. And last season, his first full year in the big leagues. It's our Chevy call to the pen. Also pitched over in Japan. Three and 1 the count on Yadi. A single back in the first inning. Big gap in left center. High fly ball into right center. Nate McLouth is there, and 1 away.
David Freese, the only Cardinal regular without a hit in the lineup, and that's going to snap an 8-game hitting streak for him. I don't think he cares too much about that right now. Nice to be a part of a nice team run production like the Cardinals have done today. 12 runs on 15 hits.
Here's Carpenter, who is singled. Also has a triple and struck out. 2 for 3 on the night. Resop talked about being a position player and moving to the mound, and as Lance Lynn likes to start, he said this guy, he likes to relieve. He likes the idea that you could pitch every day. He said, I would really struggle just sitting around between starts.
It's not for everybody. Now, it's okay sitting around between starts if you had a good one. Come to the ballpark. Nothing better than the day after a good start. You come to the ballpark and you're just, I mean, you've got no responsibility other than to run and kind of start healing up for your next start. Really shouldn't even throw very much the next day. You just kind of playing catch a little bit. Maybe get some treatment on your arm. But, I mean, it's basically you're just there to watch a big league game.
Kind of sounds like us.
I was thinking of that.
Pretty good deal, isn't it?
It is. Now they get a little better seat though, but ours is pretty good.
I was going to say this isn't bad.
No, ours is great.
2-2 on Carpenter. Yeah, this one up here, you sign me up.
Yeah, I agree. No complaints.
I know you feel
the only better seat would be in that dugout.
Well, you feel, I know, just on game days, a ton of pressure being up here as opposed to trying to get 3 outs in the 8th with the game on the line.
The pressure up here is having somebody not like what I say. The pressure down there is having somebody hit a line drive off my forehead. I'd take this pressure any day.
So you must feel a lot of pressure. No, I would never say that.
Except that you just did.
Are we on? Oh. 2-2 the count on Carpenter. 1 out, nobody on, and a swing and a miss. See, I can give you trouble like that.
It's all good.
Your smiles.
Just as long as you're not hitting the line drive off my forehead, I'm happy.
Well, that's why I'm up here, because I could never do that down there. This is the AT trivia question. Since 2010, which Cardinal has the highest average against Pittsburgh?
Surprise answer.
Boy, Pujols has just killed the Cardinals when he was here, but it's Alan Craig at 386.
Mike Matheny going to be smart, I think, the way he uses Alan Craig. He's going to try to use him often, but not every day. He realizes that coming back from his injury, you're going to be really excited to have him in the lineup, and you're going to want to use him every day, but probably not the prudent thing to do.
There's a high fly ball into center field. McLeod on the track and makes the catch running up against the wall. Nice play from the former Gold Glover in center. AT&T, rethink possible. Beautiful night here in St. Louis. 12-1 Cardinals, 15 hit attack. Another big crowd this evening. The weather should be ideal tomorrow for day baseball. We'll come your way at noon.
Thumbs up.
How about that? We had Tony West at the high point.
The versatile Tony West.
I mean, he'll scare children, but if it's movie night, watch out at the high point. Eight times already this year at home, Cardinals have had 10 or more hits, and this is number 5 straight that they've done that.
Pirates pitching staff, 3rd in the National League, coming into play tonight. How about
nice
that play?
Wow, what a play down at 3rd from Carpenter.
Things just going the Cardinals' way. Outstanding play for Matt Carpenter. Bounces up, gets his man.
Started this ball game at first base.
What are you thinking if you're the Pirates right now after a play like that?
Maybe we're still feeling the curse of Sid Bream. Scored that winning run for the Braves back in 1992.
Well, they struggled tonight. The manager was ejected, Clint Hurdle, after arguing in defense of his catcher, who was ejected. Rod Barajas was thrown out earlier. He didn't like a couple of calls by the home plate umpire. Angel Campos, which again probably went back to last night in a play at first base. So just snowballing tonight in the Cardinals' direction. My guess is this would be the last inning for Lance Lynn. Pitch count really not an issue for him. He's at 91 now, but give him 7 innings. Win 8 innings his last outing. That's plenty. And Mark Zepchinski gets loose.
When I talk to Andy Van Slyke, it's more about his time in St. Louis. I know that you two are very close, and that's a strikeout of Walker. Andy, clearly a big part of 2 franchises, one right here in town and the other is in town right now too at Pittsburgh, but he was there on the field that night, and he'll tell you that he tried to get Bonds to move in a little bit when Cabrera had that base hit to score Sid Bream. Play at the plate. Mike LaValliere has been a part of the fantasy camps for the Cardinals. Doesn't even like to talk about it anymore. But Andy's such a great defensive player. Asked Bonds to move in. Bonds did not. Throw was made, and they missed him by maybe a fraction or 2. That was the difference as to whether or not they went to the World Series. Last time the Cardinals scored 12 runs off a pitcher in a game was May 7th, 1940.
Yeah, the Pirates had a good thing going at that time. Very talented outfield. Really had enough offense and really just a good collection of players, and that kind of broke their heart. Still have that picture of Andy in center field, dejected after the loss. He certainly did his part. There was a time where Andy could have run for mayor of Pittsburgh. Very popular there.
Doug Drabek and John Smiley.
Right.
Bonds, Bonilla for a little bit, then Van Slyke. Chico Lean was their shortstop. They had Bell. I mean, they had some very good players. And a walk by Lynn with 2 down here in the 7th.
First base runner for the Pirates since the 2nd. Six strikeouts for Lynn, just 1 walk.
Has T. West ever just shown up at your house and decided, right now I'm going to put the camera on Rick Horton's house and that's going to be one of the shots for baseball tonight?
Not that I know of.
It could appear magically. You never know. He was at the High Point earlier. We've seen him on the riverfront. Been chasing children around the ballpark.
The omnipresent T. West.
These kids come to the park and they think they're getting a beautiful item that mom and dad have spent their hard-earned money on, and there's T. West with his camera just chasing them down.
It's all for a good cause, though. The sights and sounds of being at the ballpark.
0-2 the count on Garrett Jones. And that's a base hit into center field. So Lance was able to get the first 2. A walk, now a base hit.
This ball just finds a hole. Shortstop is playing Jones to pull. Second baseman pulled over into that gap on the right side of the field, and he just essentially hits the ball up the middle. It's not really the middle, but it's the middle between the shortstop and the second baseman, and that's going to be it for the Cardinal right-hander Lance Lynn. And what an outing for him.
Zipchinski coming in, and we'll hear the reaction for Lynn. Official fan-to-fan ticket marketplace of your St. Louis Cardinals. Lefty Mark Zipchinski is in the game.
Had a chance to be with Zipchinski, who's on in relief of Lance Lynn, who really good tonight, in command really throughout the game. Zipchinski spoke to hundreds of students before the game. It was the Scholar Athlete Night at the ballpark here. All of the athletes from each of the greater St. Louis area high schools were honored here, and they brought their families and had some of their friends and guests in attendance. And Mark Zipchinski, one of the few players, one of the very few players, less than a couple of dozen in Major League Baseball, that actually have their college degree. And he came over and talked to the students about the importance of education. Of course, they're scholar athletes. They know all about that. But he graduated with a business degree from Cal Riverside, and he actually worked to get that degree as a minor league player to finish up.
Good stuff.
And it was a good message for the young athletes here. The Post-Dispatch has been doing that event for years.
Crowd tonight of 35,987. 35,987. Barry Henson was in the booth with Mario Mocha, the AD and new basketball coach for Southern Illinois. Barry Henson, long time at Missouri State, and was an assistant last few years at KU. This is Josh Harrison, 24-year-old that came from the Cubs for John Grabo and Tom Gorzalani.
Nephew of former Pirate coach John Shelby.
And the 1-1 is hit out to left. That ball will get down. So the walk comes back to come around and score. That'll be charged to Lance Lynn. Makes it a 12-2 game. Harrison is 5'8". The Pirates talk about his speed and the strength in his thighs, the legs. Say he's got lower half that's as strong as anybody's in Major League Baseball. He stands at first, and Jones is the runner at second. Here's McHenry. Struck out back in the 5th. We've had 2 ejections in this game.
First time this year that Lance Lynn has given up more than 1 run on a start. That run charged to him, still responsible for Garrett Jones, the runner at second.
Two balls and no strikes on Michael McHenry. Pitchers duel between the Braves and Phillies. They're tied up at 13. That's in the bottom of the 9th. Roy Halladay making that start for Philadelphia. Mentioned Jeff Suppan a win today in his return to the big leagues. And a little ground ball to second. Tyler Green. Force play at second. Out to the Tivoli. From the high point to the Tivoli for T West.
The 3-game series, 12-2 St. Louis. Offense has been early and often. Carlos Beltran, our Nissan drives of the game. First one came in the 1st inning. It was a 3-run shot, and then another 3-run shot. This one in the 3rd inning. 7 RBIs for Carlos Beltran. That one had to be reviewed. Beltran went the rest of the way around the bases, and Mike Matheny has seen his club provide plenty of offense here tonight in game 2. And Skip Schumacher will lead off for St. Louis here in the 7th. Tyler Green has entered the game. He'll bat next. Lance Lynn, very strong outing. The book has been closed on him. Cruz is the new Pirate reliever. Lance Lynn, 6 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, both of them earned. 1 walk and 6 strikeouts, and he threw right at 100 pitches. There's Juan Cruz in his record. 9 games and has yet to allow a run.
Juan Cruz spent time over in the American League and now back in the NL Central. We saw him initially with the Chicago Cubs as we get our first look at Skip Schumacher. Remember when Skip came back last year off of injury, Rick? It took a while to get his timing back, but That has not been the case this year at all.
And really our storyline on Skip last year is he may have come back too early and his average suffered. He was really kind of so off with his timing that he was just struggling to get base hits, but certainly hadn't been the case this time. And I wouldn't say he's 100% yet. I mean, he feels much better, obviously ready to play, but you know, when you have that injury, it just tends to linger a bit. The rib cage.
Now, he is not the glamorous signing of a guy that you bring back, but in terms of what he means to the team, pretty important to see him back.
Well, you have guys on your team who are glue guys, and he's just a whole lot of glue.
3-1.
Does so many things for you. Players love him. He's a leader, kind of a quiet leader in the clubhouse. Doesn't really say a lot rah-rah wise, but very likable, very professional, hard worker, plays a lot of positions, kind of does a lot of things right.
And that's a strike. 3-2. Not quite the Tim McClelland late call that we'll see and have seen for years, but Angel Campos does that a little bit, that late delayed call with his strikes. The 3-2 hit out of play. Schumacher signed a 2-year deal this offseason to remain with the team, and people around baseball and the industry will tell you that if he would have hit the open market, it would have been a bigger deal for him, possibly to leave St. Louis, but he loves it here. He knows he's got a chance to play multiple positions, chance to win. He's been a part of 2 World Series championships and a comfort level here in St. Louis. And he draws a walk. Here's Tyler Green. There is a line shot into right, base hit, drops in. And the first 2 have reached here in the bottom of the 7th.
At bats late in games, even when it's 12-2, matter to somebody like Tyler Green who's trying to get something going, trying to see the field a little bit more. First pitch swinging again, got a pitch he could handle, hit it the other way. Way to go, Tyler.
John Jay with runners at first and second.
You know, as we watch games, Dan, as broadcasters and as fans watch the game, you get to the sense you say, well, okay, it's 12-2. Doesn't matter maybe really what John Jay does right here, but as an elite athlete, I guarantee you it matters to John Jay what he does right now. I mean, you're competing, and you're so focused on being good at what you do that you can't imagine, for the most part. Now, there are times where you're phoning a bat in or a night in as a pitcher, and they should be few and far between. But for the most part, these guys are so professional and so dedicated to the competitive nature of this that they're going to fight you tooth and nail no matter what the score is. If they're not, they shouldn't be big leaguers.
How often did you find that guys are playing for personal stats instead of trying to win?
I don't think it's 100% the wrong thing to do. I mean, not so much the stat, but for personal performance. Because really, baseball's been often described, Dan, as a game of a bunch of individuals playing a team sport. Because what you do, what's happening right now with pitcher and hitter is really what's going on in this game. And there's a bunch of other people watching. So you've got to perform that one-on-one battle. John Jay right now and Juan Cruz, that's the battle of the moment. It's an individual battle between 2 guys. And once the ball's hit into play, other people come into it. But Shane Robinson can't help out John Jay right now.
Was your contract ever lined up with a lot of those personal incentives to where you ever took that on the mound? You said, man, if I get 2 more appearances, I get X amount of dollars, those kind of things.
The big fly's got those. You had to have some numbers you might expect to be reached for that to be in your contract. So no, I never really had a contract like that.
I bring it up because, you know, it's human nature. How do you not realize, if you're a guy that hasn't made a ton of money, that,
right,
you know, for some guys, you say, well, if I get to this level of performance, I'm looking at this type of payday. It's hard, I would imagine, not to think like that.
Well, and you have to be, most contracts are not really designed that way. In fact, there's issues about putting too much player stats into contracts. MLB's trying to go in the other direction. It may be games played, maybe appearances for pitchers, innings pitched, that becomes the barometer more so than actual strikeouts or numbers.
Here's a grounder to second. Out there, and that's a double play for 6-3. Speaking of barometers, I think we'll get a better idea of just how good this Cardinals team may be after they play the NL Central, as Tyler Green went in hard at second base. I think that's another thing you like to see. Hard baseball still.
Yeah, he's fast enough to get there quickly, and Yamaiko Navarro had to show his athleticism not to get hurt. Just good hard baseball.
A lot of games coming up outside the Central Division.
It's interesting, Dan, about baseball. You know, basketball, you pass it to somebody else and let them score. You can't ever do that in baseball. It's you. And so you have to be thinking about your own personal performance. Glad to see Tyler Green make a contribution here late in this game. But ultimately, if all your focus is on you and not on the team at the end of the day, that's where it really shows its form. If you're excited when you go 4 for 4 and your team loses by 10, then your teammates aren't going to be very happy with you.
Sure. I'm sure you saw plenty of those type of characters.
You see more of it in the minor leagues, frankly. You see a lot of it in the minor leagues. And they get weeded out, or they get tired. Managers get tired of dealing with them. Sometimes the players police that themselves.
Series started with good pitching from Wainwright, as he feels personally he's making better steps in the right direction. Picked up his first win of the year here in Game 1. Lance Lynn on his way to a 5-0 start. Westbrook tomorrow, and a swing and a miss. Strikeout of Robinson. 12-2 as we move to the 8th. Sports Midwest. Let's go to our studio with this Bomarito Sports Update.
I like that soup word of the day.
Did you start that? Was that you and
Jeff?
Jeff
and I? Yeah, and he would actually get his brother and sometimes Rick Hummel to come up with the words. He'd say, I heard a big word the other day, but I can't remember what it was. Where's Rick Hummel? And he would come up with a big word, and he'd say, now I want you to use that during the telecast. And we got plenty of emails and letters throughout the season of educators and teachers throughout the St. Louis audience who would actually, there's Rick Hummel, who would use it for use those vocabulary words for their tests for their students, just to try to attract them because of their interest in Cardinal baseball. And Soup loved that, and he and Rick Hummel got along very well. Hall of Famer Rick Hummel.
Derek Gould there on the left portion of the screen, the Post-Dispatch. Here's the 0-1 pitch from Kyle McClellan. Kyle now one of the elder statesmen in that bullpen. It's odd to say that, isn't it?
It happens fast.
Just seems like he came up.
I picked on Jerry Royce one day, who was a teammate of mine, who was older. He's in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, and he won a game. He won his 200th game of his career, and I told him after the game, you know, this will be something you could tell your grandkids one day. Why don't you call them on the phone now? And he yelled at me, and he said, you know what, you'll get old soon. And he was right.
It happens in a hurry.
It does.
2-2 the count on Navarro. Whoop. Hello.
He's an animated batter. A lot of movement. Big swing. Doesn't get cheated. These are the guys that you think would be susceptible to changeups. They just can't wait to swing the bat as hard as they can.
Bryce Harper with a barehanded catch tonight. And then he leads off the ninth inning with a double. Ian Desmond a home run. And a 5-4 win for Washington.
Barehanded, you said?
Barehanded, apparently.
Kevin Mitchell did that at Busch Stadium.
Down the left field line at Old Busch Stadium. Turf was still on the field at that point. Artificial turf.
Because he took the wrong route to the ball is why
right.
He had to barehanded. He wasn't trying to be a man there. He had no other choice.
And running out of room is Molina. Pujols first at bat hit one to the track that was caught. Still homerless. He's looking it up today. There are 41 players that have actually worse numbers than Albert, with I think it was 65 at bats I looked at. But that's it, only 41. Well, when you make the kind of money that Albert has signed up for, and you're the best player in the game for a generation of fans.
Goes with the territory.
Goes with the territory. What do you think? Have we seen Bryce Harper here to stay? You bring him up now, is he here to stay? Davey Johnson wants him here.
Well, in my mind, if you bring him up, he should be here to stay. I don't like to bring him up, get him a taste of it.
Backhanded by Carpenter. And Molina couldn't pick it. Ball gets away, and Navarro will stop at second base. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. So if he's called up, you're saying he's here to stay. That's what you'd like to see.
I'm not saying he is.
That's what you'd like to see.
Well, I'd like to see him not up unless you think he's ready to stay. I think if you bring up a young, talented player just to get a taste and then send him back to the big leagues, I think there's a possibility that you create this mindset that, you know, I can't perform there. I'm only can do it back down here. And once that kind of gets in your head, you start to think of yourself as a 4A player, people say, or in between AAA and the big league.
Is that why we've seen their third baseman of the Pirates stick around? Could be part of the mindset why you keep him here.
And I'm okay with him here again since you got him here.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe the question is, was he ready for here in the first place? And that's a different question that the Pirates have to answer. Certainly a talented player.
2 balls and a strike on Alex Presley.
There's a lot of talented players in the minor leagues that aren't ready yet.
And a ground ball to the right side. Presley will advance the runner to third. We were talking between innings about the Pirates. Over 19 years, you think you might walk into a winning season. You know, somebody has a career year, maybe a minor leaguer comes up and bursts on the scene that you didn't expect, whatever. But none of that has happened for Pittsburgh. And it starts with drafting players and developing those players. And for a while, it might have been signability or the cost of trying to sign various players, but for whatever reason, for 19 years, they have had losing records. Now, last year, they reached the 100-game mark. They were tied for first, but then dropped 43 of the next 62.
But there have been numerous players, and you'd have to go down a long list of players. Freddie Sanchez, the first one, pops into my head. You got a guy that leads the league in hitting, and then you realize, well, we really can't afford to keep him, so we move him on. So they didn't develop Freddie Sanchez. They traded for him, but they traded prospects for him. And so you kind of, when you're in between rebuilding plans all the time, you end up kind of giving up on the old plan and starting a new one, and you just never kind of get there.
How do you market the team to your fans?
Well, I think the Cleveland Indians did the best job I've seen in the last 20 years of turning a team that was mired in mediocrity at best, and they just said, look, we're going to be good in 5 years. That was their marketing plan.
Right.
Hey, guys, come out and see us. We'll be good in 5 years.
And they were.
But they stayed the course and didn't spend money that they shouldn't have, and waited for some young players to develop. And when they were ready, they went out and got the missing pieces. They saved the money for that, and they went on a nice run in the 90s. And
the shame of that, though, is that they couldn't keep it together.
Well, that's the plan B. You got to have a plan B, too.
And now I think the trend in baseball is to look at a Jose Tabata and say, all right, let's lock this guy up. We're going to give you 6 years, potential of a 9-year deal. It's a risky proposition on both ends, but if he turns out to be a good player, you get a great deal. to you by Bud Light, the sure sign of a good time. Here we go. And by the state of Missouri Tobacco Quit Line. Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. Chase Park Plaza.
Is that where T West is now?
You betcha. They're all over the place. What a night for this guy, Carlos Beltran. That's what I'm talking about right there.
Now that's awesome. Friend of yours, Dan?
No, sir.
Just asking.
No, sir.
That was pretty impressive.
Very much so. The pitch is per at bat, so aggressive. His first and his last at bat. What a night here for Beltran. Pair of 3-run homers, couple of singles, 7 RBIs, his career high. New pitcher is Jason Grilli. And a ground ball. Can he beat it out? Nope. Grilli is there to the bag, and first time they've gotten Carlos. Saturday night, Jason Grilli in Atlanta had struck out the side. He's a 35-year-old veteran. They said afterwards he was very emotional because Grilli thought baseball was over for him. He comes back, and it's actually a bone that detached in his leg that got up into his thigh area, tore up the muscles there. He thought that baseball was over. On his rehab, he had a chance to meet a young girl that was missing a leg and trying to rehab. She played sports, and he had a chance to see her again in Atlanta, and he sort of just became overcome with emotions thinking about what she has gone through, as opposed to, the way he put it, minimal compared to what she's gone through.
Sometimes you just need a little perspective.
And Cruz pops it up. Alvarez makes the catch. 2 away. Said his career isn't what he envisioned when he was 20, and his dad's been in the game for a long time, but here he is at the age of 35, still pitching in the big leagues. You wonder what drives guys in the later stages of their careers to continue to play and play in the greatest league on the planet, Major League Baseball. Why they continue to do it. Why does Jeff Suppan go to the minor leagues and ride a bus for a season?
I can relate to that. Because you love it. I mean, it's what you do. It's what you grew up doing in the backyard with your neighbors, with a tennis ball and a stick, and then you advance to maybe a real baseball in somebody else's yard. And I mean, you just love the game. If you're playing at this level, you played a whole bunch when you were young, and it is part of your youth. It's part of your passion. And to say, well, I've made enough money to play, or let me give the young kids a chance. I mean, there's a lot of tugs on you and pulls on you to say, you know what, I just like being on a team. I just like being with the guys. I like being on trips. Even if we're on a bus and staying in a Fleabag motel as opposed to a Ritz-Carlton, it's still baseball, and you still love it. And I think that's really where Jeff Suppan found himself, and good for him.
So you're telling me if you have young kids, sometimes it's not bad to get on the road, and the diapers, you're not worrying about those, or getting up in the middle of the night.
Well, you worry about them.
It's slicing out to left. That ball gets down off the bat of Matt Carpenter. Matt's done a really nice job tonight.
Nice easy swing for Carpenter. Laid it out in the other direction.
He's a good player, isn't he?
Easy like Sunday morning. Lines it into the corner. Does have an error. The Cardinals have had very few errors this year, Dan. In fact, leading the National League in defense coming into play tonight. It's been another big part of their success.
Chipper Jones, the 40-year-old, with a walk-off home run tonight for the Atlanta Braves.
Another thing Zepchinski told the students at the Scholar Athlete Award, he said, you know, even if I get a chance to be in the big leagues and be there a long time, I'm still going to be a young man when I'm done, and I'm going to have to find a plan B. Another great message for the students that were here tonight. And at some point, that'll be true for Mr. Grilli. He'll run out of bullets at some point. He'll have to move on, but like most major league players, he's just going to wait till somebody tears the uniform off him.
3-0 on Descalso. And that's a walk. So the base is loaded. Really got the first two. So you get a look at Mitchell Boggs. Cal McClellan, with this big lead of 10 runs, can hit for himself, and he could finish up the game.
I would guess that Ray Searage is not going out to talk to Jason Grilli to tell him how to pitch to Kyle McClellan and what Kyle's strengths are as a hitter. I think he may have just seen something mechanically with Grilli, and I wouldn't be surprised if McClellan hits here, but Boggs still pitches the ninth. He's warming up, and I wouldn't think he'd be warming up not to pitch.
McClellan, with the bases loaded, pops one foul, and now he finds it and understands that he's got to go back to the plate. Easy like Sunday morning, huh?
Hitting's kind of tough when you don't do it a lot. You humming that?
You're making me think about it because you said easy like Sunday morning.
I did. That's the way this game has been for the Cardinals' point of view.
Lionel Richie's greatest hits later tonight on Fox Sports Midwest. Good cut by McClellan.
4 runs in the first, 3 in the second, 5 in the third. Cardinals have been putting up crooked numbers at a high pace this year. Part of the reason they've been able to do that is the power that they've shown. Only the Brewers with more home runs in the National League than St. Louis.
And a swing and a miss. McClellan strikes out. Cardinals strand the bases loaded. They've stranded 9, and they lead it by 10.
Coming up after the game on the post-game edition of Missouri Lottery Cardinals Live, Pat Parrish, the Mad Hungarian, are at Lumiere Place. Carlos Beltran gets back in the groove with a vengeance. Lance Lynn continues to impress, and the soup is on in San Diego. Lots of Carlos Beltran highlights coming up, I would assume, and we go back to the booth. And Dan and Rick, guys.
Thanks, Jim. Great job. And we'll see you on the post-game show. Beltran, huge night. Mitchell Boggs will come in. 12-2 lead for St. Louis. According to Tim Trokey, works extensively in our pre- and post-game shows. The last Cardinal with 4 hits, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs in a game. Hard-hitting Mark Whitten. 4 home runs, 12 RBIs back in 1993. First pitch, McGee, a fly ball into center. 1 away.
He's really just been the brightest star of many, Dan. It's not just been a all Carlos Beltran night. A lot of contributions up and down the lineup.
So Lance Lynn a chance to go to 5-0 in 5 starts. First 5 starts of the year. Pedro Alvarez tonight with a single, a run scored. He's grounded out and he walked and scored.
2 months ago, if you're Lance Lynn, you're coming to spring training, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to be conditioning to do whatever they want me to do. I'm sure I'm going to be a 7th, 8th inning guy, perhaps. Maybe, there's some deals they're talking about with some other starting pitchers. Maybe that'll open a spot for me.
Rick, the reality is he's thinking, I need to make the club.
Well, and that's the next point is those are things that I maybe want to do, but I got to earn it. And not only did he earn that, he earned a lot more.
Broken bat single for Pedro Alvarez. 1 out hit here in the 9th. And I say that because at the time, you got to remember, Chris Carpenter's healthy and a healthy battle right side of the bullpen as Beltran is our Budweiser player of the game. 4 for 5, pair of home runs, the singles and 7 ribbies. But, you've got Eduardo Sanchez, McClellan, Boggs, and Lance Lynn at that time that are competing for a spot. You knew Mott was your closer. But there were some pretty big ifs there. And Boggs has gotten off to a tremendous start this year. Renewed confidence. Has had a few tweaks with his delivery. The sinker is as good as you find in Major League Baseball at times. And he's throwing mid to high 90s.
Well, I get some teasing at times because I'll say about Mitchell Boggs that he has at times Hall of Fame pitches, but I think he does. Now, I don't think he throws enough of them. He's throwing more of them this year, and I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer either, but he's got that kind of electric stuff that if he could only find a way to make that pitch every single time. But his command has been much better, and the tweaking of his delivery a bit has helped. Much more command, much more control of the strike zone.
And that's a walk.
And a rare walk for him.
Yeah.
Only the 2nd walk of the season for Mitchell Boggs.
Tom Mee, our director tonight. Mike Helling, our producer. Brian McCann. Dan Hyatt, Danny Martinez, Keith Oberman, and that is a strike to Josh Harrison.
And they are all pining for a doubleheader tonight.
Sure wasn't a double play?
No, they want a doubleheader. They're like Ernie Banks in our truck.
They cannot get enough baseball.
They'll probably sleep in the truck.
pitch at 96. And we're glad that you could join us so we could put you to sleep every night.
The Cardinals have done that to the Pirates' bats, haven't they?
Ooh, not now, as Boggs gives up an 0-2 base hit. Run scores to make it 12-3. From a manager's perspective, this is what will drive Mike Matheny crazy, because you know he wants to have that quick, efficient inning,
no doubt,
and have Boggs available tomorrow.
Not a bad location, a little bit of a lazy break there, and just went down to get that. Harrison's had a nice night.
Michael McHenry. And there's a strike. Barajas, along with the manager Clint Hurdle, were ejected earlier in this ball game.
That pitch at 96 with movement up in the zone, but very difficult to catch up to.
Just missed.
Eric Bedard, Jake Westbrook tomorrow. Cardinals will have Loesch, Garcia, and Wainwright in Houston over the weekend. And it's one of the fun parts of the season, Dan, when things are going well for your starting pitching and you just kind of can't wait for the guy to throw again. Can't wait to see Loesch pitch again. Can't wait to see Wainwright pitch again. Westbrook. Just like to keep that line moving.
Here's a ground ball slowly hit, and Boggs covering the bag at first for the out. Runners advance to second and third. And it's up to Navarro to extend the ball game. Two outs, two on. A 12-3 Cardinals lead here in the ninth inning. Seven RBIs for the Cardinal right fielder tonight. One ball, one strike. Since he has been here, Rick, we have not seen Westbrook throw this well, and we'll get a look at him tomorrow.
Outstanding sinker. Slider's better this year. Mechanics are a little different.
Here's a ground ball, and this should do it. Green has it. Cardinals have another win. St. Louis improves to 16-8 the young season.
All-around good win for St. Louis. Beltran the star with his 7 RBIs, but plenty of offense around him. A lot of runs at the top of the Cardinals lineup. Rafael Furcal getting to hit 4 times in the first 4 innings of this ballgame.
So it's a big night for Beltran, big night for the Cardinals. 17 hits, How about Lance Lynn? He's 5-0. Don't go away. The Missouri Lottery Cardinals Live post-game show comes your way next.